To remove the cap from the tool setter to replace it, we'll first need to remove the bottom plate. To remove this bottom plate, we will remove the 2 bolts holding it in place with the 2mm hex key. You can use a driver, but make sure to set it to the lowest torque setting as to not strip out these screws. With those 2 screws removed, we can pull the bottom plate off of the tool setter, exposing the battery and board inside. With that board exposed, we can see there are 4 screws holding it in place, 1 in each quarter, that we will need a 1.5mm hex key to remove. Again, if you're using a driver, make sure you have your driver set to the lowest torque setting to avoid damage to the board, the screws, or the body of the tool setter. With all 4 screws removed, the board will now come free from the body of the tool setter, and we'll set that aside for later. The next thing we're going to do is remove the small black button from inside of the tool setter. This serves as a spacer so that whenever the button is pushed, it contacts the button on the board. Underneath that black button, we will find 1 bolt holding in the cap of the tool setter. To remove that, we'll need a 2.5mm hex key. With that small black button removed, we can now hold on to the cap on the tool setter and use our 2.5mm hex key to loosen the bolt, freeing the cap from the body of the tool setter. We can set that bolt aside, making sure we save it for later to reinstall our new cap. And when we pull our cap off of the top of the tool setter, we'll see these 2 springs. These are just set in place, so it's important to make sure that we don't lose them, as they are what allow the cap to pop back up after it's been pressed. And now we can install the new cap on our tool setter, just sliding it over the top of the tool setter body. You'll notice it pops up quite a bit farther than before. Because of this, we are going to have to hold some pressure onto it so that we can get the threads on the bolt to catch on the inside of the cap. Holding just a bit of pressure on that cap, we can get this started with our 2.5mm hex key. And once those threads grab, we're going to change our grip, holding on to the cap of the tool setter by hand, or again with a cloth with some vice grip pliers. This will allow us to fully tighten that bolt, and we can move on to the next step. Next thing is going to be reinstalling the small black button that we removed. You'll notice on this button that one side has an indent and the other does not. We're going to place it so that the flat side without the indent faces away from the bolt and towards the board. The flat portion of this presses down on the physical button on the board. If we place it the other way around, it will not engage the button. Next, we're going to reinstall the board that makes the tool setter function. It's also important to note that there is a small white piece on one side of the board. This is actually a green LED indicator that will shine through the window on the front of the tool setter, so it's important to make sure that those are aligned properly. With the board in place, you can test the tool setter by touching the top button and seeing if the LED shows through the front window. We can see the green indicator, so we know we're good. Now we're going to go back to our low torque setting on our driver, and we're going to reinstall the 4 small bolts with a 1.5mm hex key. With our board secured in place, we can now reroute the wire through the channel in the aluminum. You'll notice on the inside of the tool setter body there's a small channel cut out of the aluminum for the wire to be routed through, as well as a small channel on the bottom plate of the tool setter. The easiest way to reinstall this is to gently slide the bottom plate of that tool setter across the wire to lock it into place. It is an exact fit and will fit very tight. Make sure to line up all of the edges of the tool setter, then we can use the bolts we removed earlier and a 2mm hex key to reinstall them. And just like that, we have successfully changed the cap on the Onefinity CNC Tool Setter. We'll give it one more push just to make sure everything is working correctly, and we're good to go.